Learning Plan 1 has come to an end. I would encourage everyone to go out into Blackboard and look at the grades. While assignments are not graded in here, you do have to complete all the assignments, and if you go out into the grade book in Blackboard, you can see whether or not you have created or completed all of your assignments by whether or not there's a green check mark in there. If I have missed something, please let me know right away. This is Pat. Just send me an email, or you can send Tracy one as well. Remember, in Learning Plan 1, the purpose of this was to foster an understanding of performance-based learning, course design, and the tools of showing you the tools available to assist you in this. And so I'm just going to summarize some of the information that we as a group shared in regarding this. So let's start the summary by going back to your very first assignment, which was due after our class on Tuesday. What we wanted you to do is post a program map as well as a course outcome summary for a particular course. The reason we had you do this is we wanted you to understand how an individual course fits within the context of an occupational program. This is really important information to understand because, as I noted earlier in my example, if you are teaching a course that is an entry-level course, you need to understand that as well as what the outcomes of your particular program are. So it's very important to understand where a program course fits within a program. Some really good examples out on the discussion board, which they were all good, but I would encourage you to go back and look at Elizabeth's, Emery's, and Mike's. They all provide a really good example of the big picture, and you can kind of see how it flows through. And like I said earlier, this is very important information for all instructors and anyone that's working with curriculum to understand. So we started the discussion in class on the difference between performance-based learning and non-performance-based learning. And basically I want to kind of summarize that before I go into the responses from the wikis. Remember that there's 4 essential features within performance-based learning. The first feature are competencies. We want to make sure that they are identified, verified, and made public in advance of instruction. So as Barb Johnson indicated in one of her wiki posts, this is something that you would share with your students at the beginning of the class for sure in the syllabus, but you would also want to share this with the students each week as you progress through and begin working on different areas within that course. So feature 2 is performance-based learning requires the learner to perform the competency. So that's why it's so important that that the students understand what it is, so you can take into account what the learner's knowledge is. The performance is the primary evidence that the learner has mastered this competency. In other words, the final measure of the competence is whether the learner can perform each competency. And that's a very important area to remember. The third feature is performance standards are explicitly stated and made public in advance of assessing the performance, as I stated earlier when we were talking about the competencies. In other words, the learner should never have to wonder what's expected. And Pam, and when I get into that, made a really good comment in the wiki about that as well. The final feature of performance-based learning is that the learning activities and teaching strategies provide opportunities for the learners to develop the competencies. So you want to look at a variety of learning strategies. You want to give all of the learners periodic feedback. And you need to remember that the competencies are the heart of the performance-based learning. And you will start working on the competencies in Learning Plan 2 and writing those for a particular course or a project that you have chosen. So let's look at some of the responses that were out in the wiki. And I would encourage you to definitely go back out there and check out what was written as you start to write your competencies, because that'll kind of give you that overview of performance-based learning. There were some really good links out there and some really good tables too, so I highly encourage you to go there. So the first one, as I'd indicated, Pam mentioned that how we show the student why this course is important and what they will be able to do when they successfully complete the class. I think that kind of puts it in the nutshell. And Emma went on to say we want the students to demonstrate and apply their knowledge. Right. We need to know that they can do what we have said that they should be able to do. Emery and Elizabeth also discussed backwards design, and I know Tracy mentioned this in our face-to-face class as well. But when you look at the course outcomes, that's the first thing that you do, and then you work backwards from them to plan out your semester. And that's why it's important to know where your course fits within the program, because where you start at may be a little bit different depending on where the course falls within the program. Also, Barbara mentioned that learning outcomes are the course outcome summary. They should be included in the syllabus and reviewed the first day of class, which I mentioned before. And I didn't get who wrote this, so I apologize, but someone said, and I think this is really, really important, it helps keep the instructor focused on the final goal. And that's where we want to know. It's our roadmap. It helps us get to the end result. Some other thoughts that I just wanted to share with you are, while it's true you want to shoot for the higher rungs of Bloom's taxonomy, be careful, because think about it. Would you want to have a first semester student working at the top cognitive level in Bloom's taxonomy? For example, would you want them creating a project if you haven't already built up that foundation for them to get there? A lot of times in programs we find that we have really poor retention the first semester. And is the poor retention possibly a cause of how the curriculum was written and what the outcomes of that particular course are? Are we trying to get our students to do something too high of a level that they're not prepared to do? So just something to think about. I also like the comment about, I worry about being overly ambitious as an instructor. And I know I've attended some different seminars, and one of them was with blended learning in particular. It's like we want to get everything done, and so we add way too many things into a course, and so we overwhelm people, or we overwhelm our learners as well as we overwhelm ourselves because of the amount of work that we have to do. So that's where the course outcome summary comes into effect, and when you use that as your focus in your goal, as we stated earlier, I feel that that will really help you not try to do more than you actually can do. And that is always a caution. I think, we want to get everything out there for our students. And a lot of times I say, especially when I started learning about curriculum, the one thing is, just because you have 14 chapters in a textbook doesn't mean that you have to go through all 14 chapters, especially if they don't relate to anything in your competency. I would look at your competencies, work backwards, and see what you would use out of the textbook to support those. Now, as we begin with Learning Plan 2, I want you to carry a couple of thoughts with you. The first area you will be working on are exit outcomes, and these include the program outcomes, external standards, and core abilities. In addition, if you have gone through technical skill attainment, that would also include those TSAs, or as they're called, that were established collaboratively by the WTCS colleges. These give you the big picture. This is like the really big picture, and then the courses fall within that. So make sure that you spend time. We've got an overview out there and a couple of other pieces that you can read to learn more about that. Then you will go into creating competencies for your selected course or project. And remember that a competency is a major skill, knowledge, or attitudes for your course, which are measurable and observable. And the last two, and that's why I put them in all caps, are very, very important. So they must start with a verb, and they must be measurable, and they must be observable. And you also have to take into consideration, when you're choosing verbs, where does the course lie within the program? And we'll give you all the information on that in Learning Plan 2, so hopefully that'll walk you through that. Also, the learning objectives. You are going to be creating learning objectives to go with the competencies that you've created. And I just want you to remember that they are the supporting or secondary skills or knowledge or attitudes that lead or help get you to mastery of that particular competency. So remember, once again, the course fits within a program or supports a program if it's general studies, so you need to be aware, and the program map is going to allow you to view that and understand that. Good luck, and don't be afraid to ask any questions if you have them.